I worked endless hours to fund my wife's $75,000 degree after her parents refused, but when I found out about her affair with her professor, I ruined them all. Sarah, my 28-year-old wife, is presently pursuing a master's degree. She has always desired it, and I have been there for her every step of the way. A few years ago, I, a 34-year-old man, spent more than $75,000 for her undergraduate degree. At the time, her parents, Susan, a 52-year-old woman, and David, a 58-year-old man, refused to cover the cost of her schooling. They told her it was pointless, since she would ultimately get married and start a family. I never liked that mindset. David and Susan have a lot of money. They enjoy extravagant vacations, possess several residences, and spend money any way they like. But they concluded it was not worth the money when considering their daughter's future. When parents stopped supporting her during her sophomore year of college, Sarah was crushed. In order to help her finish her degree, I stepped in and volunteered to cover her tuition. I had a hard time coming up with that much money. I put my personal life on wait, worked longer hours, and took on more jobs. However, I had faith in Sarah, and wanted her to live the life she had always desired. I was pleased to see her cross the stage during her graduation a few years ago. Everything I had given up seemed worth it. In the present, Sarah is working for a master's degree. Once more, I am standing by her side while she pursues her objectives. She talks about her lecturers and classmates a lot and is doing well in her program. One of the most often suggested names is Professor James, 60M. One of her teachers is James. He is obviously Sarah's favorite based on the way she speaks about him. She never stops talking about how much he teaches her and how enthusiastic he is about his work. She claims that he has a talent for making any subject engaging and that his lectures are riveting. At first, I didn't give it much thought. I assumed she simply admired him as a guide. Sarah was looking through an old photo book she had retrieved from storage a few nights before while she sat on the couch. At the time, I didn't give it much thought. As she talked about her undergraduate days, I was partly listening as I browsed through my phone. All of a sudden, I heard her laughing like a kid. She was looking at a picture of herself with an unfamiliar man when I turned to look at her. I inquired who it was since I was interested. Saying it was James, her lecturer, she grinned. She noted how adorable he looked in the picture and clarified that it was from a recent event at her institution. Her tone did not set well with me, but she laughed again as if it were a joke. I couldn't help but wonder what she meant when she said cute. With a shrug, she began discussing James in a way that made my stomach turn. She added that in addition to being an excellent instructor, he was also affable, entertaining, and someone she could confide in about everything. Then she struck me like a ton of bricks with something she carelessly dropped. She chuckled as if it were no big thing and called her time with James a lovely little fling. I was shocked and perplexed. A liaison. As like it were a harmless recollection, she was sitting there grinning and thinking back. Sarah continued chatting without realizing the impact her words were having on me. She talked about how much James supports her and how, when she's having a hard time, he makes her feel unique and recognized. She said that he was self-assured, cosmopolitan, and had a unique understanding of her. Everything began to make sense as she said. She would frequently chat about how much she admired James when she got home. There was more to it than academics. I had been totally unaware that there had been more to it. Sarah continued by claiming that if her parents had known about her disobedient little affair, they would have been incensed. She laughed as she said it, as if it were something to be proud of. She even made a joke about how James made her more daring, and that it was a moment she would always remember. It felt like a smack in the face to hear her speak negatively of James after everything I had done to help her. I had put a lot of effort into providing her with chances that her parents would not have. I had invested money, time, and effort into her success. And now I was learning that she had a brief affair with a guy over twice her age as part of that experience. Even more hurtful was the way she spoke it so nonchalantly, as if it didn't matter. She displayed just nostalgia, as though it were a treasured memory, without any remorse or shame. She didn't appear to care or recognize the impact of what she was saying on me. After a time, still grinning to herself, she closed the album and returned it to the storage box. I kept thinking about what she had said, even though she didn't bring up James again. I could still clearly recall how she had raved about him and referred to it as a fling as if it were nothing. I had trouble falling asleep that night. Everything she had said kept coming back to me. I considered how proud I had been to watch her succeed, how many hours I had worked to pay for her tuition, and all the sacrifices I had made for her education. All of that seemed insignificant now. I could not get Sarah's remarks out of my head. Adorable tiny fling. As if it were but another chapter in her life narrative, she had spoken it with such casualness. However, it seemed like a betrayal to me. I was unsure of how to interpret it. Was it something I was meant to just accept and let go of? Or was it something that would alter my perception of her forever? It stung more the more I thought about it. I had fully trusted Sarah, believed in her, and supported her. I started to doubt everything after hearing her speak about James in such a way. Was I only a stepping stone, someone who would pay for her schooling while she fulfilled her dreams of attending college? I chose not to confront her immediately. I chose to let her continue to believe that everything was all right. I began piecing things together over the course of the following several weeks. I was previously aware that she and James had been close while she was a college student. I now had to determine the true depth of that connection, and whether it had gone too far in a professional sense to have an impact beyond my marriage. Examining historical documents and correspondence was the first step. There were a lot of pictures, emails, and even saved conversation logs on Sarah's phone, and she isn't very private about her life. Going through her belongings made me feel guilty. However, my sense of justification increased as I discovered more. Outside of the classroom, there were images of her and James that appeared a bit too intimate for a professor and student, rather than merely group shots. In several emails, he praised her appearance, her wisdom beyond her years, and her enthusiasm for life. They were improper, but they weren't explicit. After that, I discovered communications that demonstrated how their connection had progressed to a physical level. I was dealing with more than just a personal betrayal at that moment. I became aware that I had proof of a grave ethical transgression. At the time of their relationship, James had been in a position of control over Sarah. It was more than just me. It concerned the exploitation of a pupil under the supervision of a higher authority. Sarah may have presented it as a light-hearted college romance, but the more I learned, the more predatory it seemed to me. I was aware that I couldn't be rash. Sarah would have time to warn James or remove evidence if I approached her too quickly. Without sufficient evidence, I might not get any action if I went directly to college. So I went along with it. While gathering all the information I needed to present a strong case, I pretended that everything was okay between us. James's remarks were on an old essay Sarah had kept on her laptop, along with more emails and photos. His criticism extended beyond her work. He stated he appreciated their chats outside of class, and described her point of view as refreshing. It became evident to me as I read on that James was going beyond what was appropriate in a professional setting. His remarks appeared flirtatious and intimate, going beyond simple instruction. He called their office hour conversations the highlight of his week in one email, expressing how much he looked forward to them. He also said in previous texts, "You always make my day better, and I'm looking forward to our next conversation." I felt ill to my stomach because of that. After reading these texts, I realized how far they had crossed boundaries, even though I had trusted both of them. James and Sarah both made me feel deceived. Sarah had been given opportunities that other pupils did not appear to have, I also learned. Despite not having the best scores in her class, she had been given a job with James as a research assistant. The institution had paid for her hotel accommodations as she and him flew to an academic conference. I began to question how much of her academic achievement was earned and how much was given to her as a result of their friendship. I had all I needed before the end of the year. I anonymously forwarded a comprehensive report that included all of the emails, pictures, and notes to the dean of the college and higher authorities. I made it obvious that James's activities were against the college's standards, provided a timeline of events, and emphasized particular instances of wrongdoing. Although I anticipated fallout, I did not anticipate it to occur so rapidly. An inquiry was started in a matter of weeks. While the college examined the facts, James was put on administrative leave. I'm not sure precisely what Sarah said them when she was brought in for interrogation, but it was obvious that she wasn't ready for this. The repercussions were dire when the college's conclusions were made public. James was prohibited from teaching at any public university after being sacked for egregious misbehavior. I'm very certain he won't ever work in academia again because his reputation was ruined. Sarah did not escape punishment either. The institution concluded that the integrity of her degree had been jeopardized by her involvement in the relationship. She was barred from alumni networks and future academic possibilities associated with the university, and her academic distinctions were withdrawn. When Sarah learned, she became enraged. One evening, she came home, slamming the door and sobbing at the loss of all she had fought so hard to achieve. She said the college was overreacting and accused them of being unjust. Then, though, she became enraged with me. She claimed that by failing to defend her during all of this, I had destroyed both her college experience and her career. I didn't answer. I let her to vent. Give her the freedom to express whatever she needed to in order to feel better about herself. I knew in my heart that she wasn't upset because she had been mistreated. She was upset that she had been apprehended and that her actions had repercussions. She's still upset with me. She has been aloof and chilly, and I'm very certain that our marriage is in ruins, even if I haven't acknowledged my part in exposing her and James. However, I can't force myself to feel bad. I feel a sense of justice, if anything. Sarah made decisions that had repercussions, and James misused his position of authority. Even still, a tiny part of me questions whether I went too far. Was I correct to hold them responsible, or did I ruin her future out of resentment? A plan to reveal my wife's extramarital affair. One update. My previous update was some months ago. Although it was clear that things were not going well between us, she was first unaware that I had brought them to her attention. We were at odds about her actions all the time. When the altercation got out of control one day, I told her that I had reported her and James. I assured her that I had no regrets about what I had done. She was screaming and screaming at me, accusing me of ruining her life. I yelled back that she was the one who destroyed my life and that I had done the right thing. We didn't talk at all for a while. Sarah pretended that I was the villain and that I had somehow harmed her. I found it difficult to comprehend why she was unable to recognize that I was the one who was in pain. She seemed to be treating me as the bad guy in this whole thing. Then she approached me one evening. I'm not sure why she reached out, but I wasn't prepared to speak. I made it clear to her that I didn't want to hear anything she had to say. I had no desire to fight. She wouldn't leave it alone, but I didn't want to start another lengthy discussion in which she would again offer reasons. She said that I didn't understand her, which sparked an argument. She said she needed me at her side since everyone was against her. She claimed that I had abandoned her, and that she needed my support. I was unsure of how to react to that. After what she had done to me, all I could say was that I was no longer on her side. She had cheated on me, and I couldn't just ignore it. She made an effort to clarify. I had to do it, she said, if I wanted to advance. That's the way it is. What I was hearing was unbelievable. I was sickened by it. How could she believe that was acceptable? What made her believe that was the only path to success? To succeed, she didn't have to have an affair with her professor. She was competent, intelligent, and diligent. But rather than realizing that, she believed that this was the necessary course of action. I informed her that at the moment, I couldn't even look at her. Her attitude and behavior sickened me. Everything was made worse by her inability to recognize how incorrect it was. She was not guilty. She didn't regret what she had done. I was deceived. And despite my best efforts, I was unable to simply let that go. Then she got up and attempted to turn the tables on me. She accused me of being patronizing and speculated that I could have also exploited my subordinates. I was enraged. I was not going to allow her to force me to think that way since I had never done anything like that. I made it obvious that the claim was totally false, even though I had no idea whence it originated. I informed her that I would never behave the way she did, therefore she should stop thinking that way. It dawned on me when I informed her that her thinking was messed up. If she thought it was okay to cheat in order to succeed, perhaps therefore this was not the first time she had done this. I questioned her, and to my surprise, she acknowledged that she had previously engaged in similar behavior. I was unable to remain in the residence at that time. I couldn't be with someone who had that kind of thinking and didn't see how morally reprehensible what she was doing was. Being in the same vicinity as her was unbearable to me. I immediately went to my parents' place after packing my belongings. I couldn't continue to act like everything was fine when it wasn't. I told my parents everything when I arrived at their house. Naturally, they were taken aback, but they did not pass judgment on me. They recognized that I needed time to take it all in and decide what to do. More than anything, I was grateful for their support. Since then, I've been living with them, and it hasn't been simple. I'm still in shock about everything that transpired. Sarah has been constantly phoning and messaging me to inform me that I'm exaggerating. She doesn't get why I'm so angry. She still doesn't seem to get it. How could she have been unaware of the pain she had caused me? Her calls and texts have gone unanswered by me. I simply become more irate each time I see a message from her. Why was she still so ignorant of everything? She pretends like nothing is wrong. She believes I'm being overly emotional, but I can't get over what she did. I can't pretend that everything is all right when it's obviously not. I've already made up my mind. I'm going to file for divorce the minute I return to that residence. After that, I have no idea how things will turn out. However, I can't continue to live this way. I can't be with someone who believes that this kind of behavior is okay because I know that if I forgive her, she will continue to act in this way and think it's all right. I just need some time to reflect right now. To comprehend all that has transpired and choose my next course of action, I require time. I had trusted her. To help her earn her degree, I had made many sacrifices. Supporting her seemed like the appropriate thing to do, but now it seems meaningless. It all seemed pointless given the way she handled me and the way she attempted to defend her behavior. It is difficult for me to believe that I trusted someone with this kind of thinking for so long. Although I have no idea what the future may bring, I am certain that I cannot continue in this marriage. It's finished. I can't keep attempting to fix something that can't be fixed. When I get home, I'm going to file for divorce and then decide how to proceed. But I simply need time for now. The second update. A little history of Sarah and myself. I can't even recall how long Sarah and I have known one another. I was 11 when my family moved in, and we grew up next door. When Sarah was 9 years old, we immediately grew close. We began dating quite quickly after that. We spent a lot of time together, and I was only 13 when we started. It started off as a sweet childhood romance but eventually became serious. Despite all that happened to us, we constantly assured one another that we would survive. I had entire faith in her, and I thought our relationship would last a lifetime. Everyone in our immediate vicinity began to think that we were destined to be together over time. To be honest, we did too. We both regarded ourselves as the pair that everyone assumed would get married. When, not if, was the question. I never considered being with someone else or investigating other relationships. Sarah was ideal for me right from the beginning. She was the ideal match for me. I had such faith in us that I never even thought about dating anybody else. I felt that we had a particular bond and that she was my person. However, I was always disturbed by something about her parents. Susan, her mother, had a fairly traditional outlook on life. She believed that getting married and starting a family was a woman's main objective. She didn't think women should be independent or have jobs. David, her father, wasn't any better either. He believed that women could only advance in the job by doing favors for their superiors or employers. Hearing it disturbed me and made me understand how dysfunctional their mindset was. However, Sarah never seemed to speak like them, even though she grew up with this. I therefore always believed that she was unique. I didn't think she would adopt that perspective. She was capable, intelligent, and powerful. It never occurred to me that she might think like her parents. Sarah was 24 and I was 26 when we were married. We had been dating for so long that it felt like the proper moment for me to go forward. Another issue was that Sarah's parents were quite strict with her and made it clear that they did not want her to remain single until she was 25. If I wanted to marry her, I would have to do so before then, or they would search for other options. We made the decision to marry young because we no longer wanted to put up with their pressure, not because we were in a haste. We desired to be free to live as we pleased. And she never made me question her in all those years. Everything seemed good, and she was constantly present. There was no indication that something was amiss, or that she wasn't as dedicated as I was. I had total faith in her. I was thus hit harder than I could have ever expected when everything went apart. I never imagined that someone I thought I know so well would betray my confidence. The third update. I've been living with my parents for about 3 months now, but I've finally made the decision to return home. I was surprised by how things turned out. Sarah started yelling at me as soon as I went through the door. She was upset and accused me of leaving her when she most needed me. She said that she had been subjected to emotional abuse by her parents, Susan and David, and that I need to speak with them and assure them that she had done nothing wrong. She wanted me to let them know that now that I was back, everything was good. It was unbelievable. She was attempting to use things to her advantage. She was obviously at fault, so I asked her why I would do that. Even maintaining my composure was difficult for me. She seemed indifferent to the fact that she had injured me. Rather, Mom assured me it didn't matter because I was now back home and we had figured it out. However, I informed her that nothing had been resolved and that I was certain it would not be. Her expression fell when I informed her I wanted a divorce. She was utterly taken aback, as though I had never spoken anything to her before. However, it seemed like the only choice left to me. The trust could never be restored since it had been shattered. I had had enough of fighting. In order to obtain some space, I walked upstairs to my room. Sarah, however, was not giving up. I couldn't simply dump a bomb like that on her, she remarked as she barged into my room. She continued to make her usual justifications, saying it was unjust and wondering why I couldn't just forgive her. I was being harsh, she said. I assured her that it wasn't me who was being unjust. She had cheated on me several times, I reminded her. In a way I never would have imagined, she had violated my confidence. I told her that she ought to have considered what was unfair when she decided to cheat on me before attempting to explain it to me. However, she made an effort to defend her behavior by claiming that it wasn't actually cheating. She said that it was something she had to do, and that she was only trying to advance. I felt nauseous when I heard her say that. I informed her that I no longer gave a damn. I had had enough of her justifications. I just wanted to get a divorce and get out. She began to cry as soon as she heard that. She pleaded with me to think again, assuring me that we could make things right. She apologized, but it was insufficient. I could no longer trust her since the harm had been done. I could no longer continue to act as though nothing was wrong. I moved out the next week after finding a modest flat. Although it wasn't an easy choice, I thought it was the correct one. It was time to go on. By then, I had filed for divorce, and I'm currently awaiting word from my attorney. Sarah hasn't stopped contacting me since I moved out. She has called and texted, but I haven't returned her calls. I don't feel like I owe her anything, but I haven't blocked her yet. I'd rather not speak with her. I don't want things to return to how they were. I can no longer even look at her the same way. In an attempt to persuade me to reconsider, her parents also gave me a few calls. They advised me to be more sympathetic of Sarah and said I was making a big mistake. They even made an attempt to intimidate me, but I refused to listen. They were prevented by me. That type of pressure is not something I need in my life. Even if I'm still absorbing things, I must put myself first for the time being. The fourth update. I haven't posted on this site in a while. My attorneys urged me to avoid social media and not discuss the divorce or any connected issues online after all that transpired, so I said nothing for a time. However, I believe I am now in a position to provide an update. I'm now legally divorced. The procedure was exhausting and time-consuming. At first, Sarah didn't want the divorce. We attempted a private settlement, but when that failed, we were forced to go to court. Sarah attempted to persuade everyone that she had done nothing wrong, even in the courts. She claimed that her actions were not an error. It was simply the way she had always thought things should be. Even then, she attempted to defend her behavior. However, I had all the proof. The divorce was therefore completed. It was a relief that everything was divided in half and that I no longer had to pay alimony. Sarah sent me an email a few weeks after the divorce. She informed me that she had a lot to work on and had been seeing a therapist. She acknowledged the wrongness of her actions and expressed regret for causing me such suffering. She wanted me to know that she was sorry for everything, even though she claimed to love me and didn't expect me to forgive her. She pledged not to get in touch with anyone again. To be honest, it felt odd when I read the email. I just thanked her for the apologies in my response. That was all. It had nothing to do with my yearning for closure. Recognizing that she had at least acknowledged her mistakes was more important. I didn't think I needed to say anything more after that. It's finished now. I still find the entire event strange. I had known Sarah for 18 years. I also believed that we would age together for a very long period. I feel as though a chapter of my life has come to an end and I am beginning over. I didn't anticipate the sense of emptiness that exists. However, I secretly know that this is the best course of action for me. There's no turning back. Too much had changed, and the trust was shattered. I'm making an effort to adapt to life following the divorce. Even if some days are more difficult than others, I am certain that I am doing morally. I do not regret my choice, even though it is difficult. Although the process has been drawn out and emotionally taxing, I'm making an effort to concentrate on the future.